But if we do move the parking lot, we are going to have to build a roundabout at the end of Hillview Drive for emergency vehicles and for turnarounds for fire trucks, for emergency vehicles that have to service the residents on Hillview Drive. So that's why you see a cul-de-sac in there. Now, as a staff, we kind of looked at the pros and cons of where the park, the playground should be located. And park staff felt pretty strongly that, you know, the main part of the park should be where the playground is located. And the reason for that is because if you have kids there, multiple age groups, and you're there to watch one child play baseball, you can actually sit right at the end of first baseline there and watch your kids also, the other kids that you bring to the park, play on the playground. So you can be watching several kids at once in the large area of the park. In the current location of the playground, there's so many trees in there, and that playground is located very close to Oakdale Avenue that it's really very separated from the ball field. And it really isn't visible. So we felt that it really should be part of the main part of the park and one of the main focal points of the park instead of hidden to the north. In addition, we did incorporate an open shelter into the design, and that would be a rentable open shelter. What's shown on this plan is probably the size of the shelters at Bay Beach Amusement Park. So, you know, they're fairly decent sized shelters for renting, and we feel that a lot of people would rent that if we were to build a shelter of that size. We are not showing any public restrooms in this park at this point. We can always add those in the master plan at a later date. But currently the park doesn't receive a lot of usage other than the ball field games. If we find that, you know, the number of park users increase dramatically, well, then we can look at adding restrooms in the future. Then what we did is we created kind of a circular walkway that connects everything. And that would be an ADA accessible walkway, which is required whenever you're building new facilities in a park. In addition, it's just a nice loop to have to connect the different activities to each other to the new parking lot. And as you can see, the playground and open shelter are in pretty close proximity to the new parking lot also, which is going to be pretty convenient for anybody who wants to come to the park for that use. Now, the area to the north that's kind of heavily wooded where the existing playground is, what we're proposing there is kind of a sculpture walk area. And if you look at the images at the top of the master plan, you'll see photo 1 shows some kind of artistic, colorful balls. Those are actually playground balls, and we actually purchased those for another playground, and we didn't use them at that playground. So we actually have them in hand right now, and we can actually put them in various locations in that area. It's just kind of a fun, artistic expression that we can do very quickly and very inexpensively because we have them in hand already. And they're just kind of fun. You can climb on them, you can jump from one to one, and we can maybe do 3 or 4 different groups of these balls with the number of them that we have. Like I said when I started out this discussion, the ball field is actually in really good shape, and we don't really have a desire to relocate it or really improve it much more beyond what it is, other than maybe at some point we can create better dugouts. So we also provided an entry archway that you can see in photo 3, and that archway would be located just north of the ball field, and that would be the entrance to the sculpture walk. Again, I guess that feature isn't really designed. That's just a photo that we found online that could be similar to what we install there for an entry arch, but it wouldn't necessarily have to be the specific one that we put there. We can do a different variation of that entry archway. So like I said, this final master plan, really our focus was to alleviate some of the parking concerns and really create a better entry into the parkway than what we currently have. And by moving that parking lot off of Hillside Lane, I think we're accomplishing that in the master plan. So the cost to implement all of these changes would be right around $900,000. And over half of that total cost would be just go towards the installation of the cul-de-sac, the walkways, and the parking lot. So the only part of the master plan that's currently funded, though, is the installation of the playground. And I've already discussed that. We'll install that very shortly after the master plan is approved. You know, we wouldn't look at implementing the majority of this master plan until the desire is to improve some of these facilities. So for example, the parking lot is actually, the asphalt's in fairly good condition right now. So at this point, we wouldn't recommend, you know, funding the relocation of that parking lot at this point. We would make that change, you know, maybe 5 to 10 years from now when that asphalt is in rough shape and is in need of replacement. At that time, we would then, you know, request funding to move the parking lot and create the cul-de-sac. So I guess what I'm getting at is this is kind of a phased approach. We're not looking for requesting any funding as part of this meeting. What we're requesting is just approval of the master plan so that we can select the final location for the playground and then plan for the future. So what we'll do is we'll look at our 5-year CIP. We'll look at how these improvements compare to other improvements in our entire park system and make a determination in the future CIPs where these improvements really make sense to fall into place. You know, what year we would do it would be based on, you know, where our other priorities lie within the park system. So I believe there are a few individuals from the neighborhood who have signed into this meeting. I don't know if anyone is interested in commenting on this master plan. I will tell you that we did present this final master plan to the Neighborhood Association probably about a week and a half ago. It was very well attended. Alder Gerlach was there, along with probably about 30 individuals were there also. And it was a very good, you know, comment session. I think in general, I think there were a lot of concerns brought up about issues in the park. But I don't think that there were a lot of concerns brought up with the master plan itself. And maybe Alder Gerlach can speak to that and what her take of that meeting was. But at this point, what I would do is I would recommend that we open up the floor for comments.
I'd like to make a motion to open the floor.
Second.
Motion by Alder Burnett to open the floor, seconded by Alder Gerlach. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, the floor is now open. Anyone who would like to speak, please state your name and address, and you may speak freely. Okay, go ahead.
We do have one individual. I will, Mrs. Williams, I don't know if you can unmute yourself.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm here with my husband, Mike and Bonnie Willems. We live at 344 Huth Street, which is on the corner of Huth and Hillview that go into the park. I spoke with approximately 15 of my neighbors down Oakdale, Huth Street, and Hillview. The biggest concern about the new location of the equipment is the safety and the seclusion of where it's being placed. Being that there are skunks and possums and other wild animals back there. There have been incidents of homeless people back in the brush back there. They also had us on lockdown twice for looking for convicts back there last year. I do appreciate, and we all do appreciate, more parking, better parking. Huth Street is pretty much parking up and down both sides. Huth Street is used as a through street back and forth to Pick and Save. It makes it very hard for some of us to get in and out of our driveways, as well as the two residents that live on Hillview, whose driveways come off of Hillview that go into the park. That's a big concern. I did talk to Director Ditchite after the meeting about possibly making one side of Huth Street no parking to have a better flow of traffic up and down Huth Street. Other than that, that's about all I can add for myself and most of my neighbors here down Oakdale, Huth Street, and Hillview.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Mullins? Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else here who'd like to speak on this?
I would like to speak.
Okay, please state your name and address.
Yep. David Deschamps, 201 Shober Street, Green Bay, 54302.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I would just like to comment on it. As far as I'm the vice president of the neighborhood association, so I was in part of a lot of the meetings. I thought there was a really good job by the neighborhood association by giving a platform to anybody that want to speak on it. And I think the Parks Department did a great job on taking all the feedback and incorporating all the neighborhood's thoughts into the master plan. And I'm really excited with how the master plan worked out. And, I really think the experts, took all that feedback and put everything in the best position to really take the park forward. That's all I have.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Deschamps. Okay. Thank you. Anyone else here who'd like to speak on this? Going once? Going twice? I'll take a motion to close the floor.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Alder Gerlach to close the floor, seconded by Alder Burnett. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, the floor is now closed. My fellow committee members, what are your thoughts? Alder Gerlach.
Would you entertain a motion? I would move to approve.
Move to approve by Alder Gerlach.
I'll second that.
Second that by Alder Burnett. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Let me know when I can go on to 2.
We are ready for item 2.
Okay, consideration with possible action on the request by Ducks Unlimited and UWGB Green Bay to manage the Phragmites with herbicide at Ken Ewers Park. Staff?
So Ducks Unlimited, in partnership with UW Green Bay, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, received grant funding to manage the Phragmites on various public properties in the lower Green Bay. So what they're doing is they're requesting to spray herbicide at Ken Ewers in the new managed wetland area as part of this grant. The goal of this program is to eradicate the Phragmites, or is by eradicating the Phragmites, you'll encourage growth of other wetland plant species, and therefore you'll improve fish and wildlife habitat in that managed wetland. So if approved, they'll spray in late summer or early fall. In the past, we have allowed other groups to do spraying of Phragmites, not only at this park, but at other parks. So if you recall, maybe about 5 or 6 years ago, we did allow the Bay Lakes Regional Planning Commission to spray and mow the Phragmites on various park properties, this being one of them. So, and it'll be done in very much the same manner. So the contractor that is going to be hired to do the work by Ducks Unlimited will have to sign a hold harmless agreement, and they're going to have to show proof of insurance. And then in addition, they're going to be required to spray only when there's ideal weather conditions to do so. So, they're really concerned with the safety of pedestrians and wildlife out there, so they're only going to do it when it's ideal conditions. So in general, I don't have any concerns with approving this request. We do, I believe, have somebody from UWGB who is in the meeting if you have specific questions for her. But like I said before, we've done this type of approvals in the past and it's been successful.
Anyone have any questions or concerns or comments?
I would move to approve.
I'll second.
Move to approve by Alder Gerlach, seconded by Alder Burnett. Yes, I want to thank Ducks Unlimited and UWGB for doing this. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Even though I'm not a big fan of herbicides, it's what's got to be done. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously.
You can go on to item 3.
Item 3, consideration with possible action on the request by Wisconsin Public Service to approve a 12-foot wide utility easement at Christa Mcauliffe Park. Staff?
So Wisconsin Public Service approached the Parks Department and requested this 12-foot wide utility easement at the park from Sitka Street to our utility service located just south of the ball field near the shelter. So if you look at the easement agreement in the agenda packet, you'll see a map showing where that easement would be located. It's the last page of that easement agreement. So right now, there's an above-ground service that they'd like to upgrade and bury the line. And since there are no current easements within the park for that above-ground service, we will need to grant them this easement in order for them to install the underground line and update the service. There will be no cost to the city to install this line. They will be using boring equipment instead of traditional trenching to preserve the trees. And, you know, as in other requests in the past, I really have no concerns with this proposed easement, and I would recommend approval. And if we don't grant them this easement, then they can't do the work.
My fellow committee members, what are your thoughts, comments, questions?
I would move to approve.
Move to approve by Alder Gerlach.
Second.
Seconded by Alder Manette. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously.
On to item 4.
Consideration with possible action on the request by Wisconsin Public Service to approve a 12-foot utility easement at Triangle Hill in the Barrett's Creek Greenway. Staff?
So this is a very similar request as the previous agenda item. They need this 12-foot wide utility easement at Triangle Hill to replace the aging overhead electric line. So again, in this scenario, they bury the new lines and they're proposing to bore them to protect the trees. This easement that follows the entrance drive and the parking lot is needed to install a new service line to the park's main electric panel. So but the easement that follows the Bear Creek Road, that one's needed to bury the overhead lines to service the residents living along that road. So half of the easements shown on this graphic are for city purposes. The other half are shown to service residents living on that road. So again, there'll be no cost to the city for WPS to install these lines, but there will be a cost at some point over the next few years to upgrade our electric service where these lines tie into. So our service is very old. It is in need of being replaced. We are going to have to hire an electrician consultant to design that service for us and put together a cost estimate. But we're not planning on making that change right away. We'll do it sometime over the next few years, and we'll just figure out the right time to include that cost in our 5-year CIP, and we'll do that at a later date. But for right now, they can connect to our existing electric service. Again, we don't have any concerns with this request, and we would recommend approval.
Move to approve.
Second.
Move to approve by Alder Brunette, seconded by Alder Gerlach. And I'm shocked that our electric grid needs to be checked in 5 years. But such as it is. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously.
So we're ready for the next item.
Okay, we're on to informational staff update on current staffing levels for the pools. Dive in, staff.
Yes, I would like to open this discussion up to Ann Muller. You all know Ann. She runs our pools. and she can give you a brief update of where we sit with staffing and our pool situation.
Good evening. Glad to be here again. So over the past 2 weeks, well, as of tomorrow, I'll be finishing up my second lifeguarding class in 2 weeks. So as of about noon tomorrow, I would have trained 22 new lifeguards. With that, and based on our new hires and everybody trained and availability, we are operating both Rush Aquatic Center and Coburn Pool. We are at a very bare bones, had to close some sections and kind of piecemeal some schedules together, but both facilities are open. We are still in need of 24 more full-time lifeguards. I will be doing one more lifeguard training course next week. Don't know how many people will be in that course yet, but I do have about, it could be up to 12 applicants and potential lifeguards. That will not be enough to get all 3 facilities up and running. What that could potentially do, if we get everybody trained, is get us to completely full staff at our 2 facilities that are open. So at Rush and Coburn, that's going to get us in a situation where we can put out our summer schedules and have a consistent schedule and be consistently open all sections for the rest of the summer. So at this point, with who applications in for and with the writing on the wall, at this point, we don't have enough to get our 3rd facility open.
And so I do want to just mention, in addition to what Ann stated, I guess the question becomes, why didn't we open Joanne's and have one facility open on the east side and one facility open on the west side? Really, it just comes down to the number of lifeguards you need to run Joanne's. Joanne's takes the most amount of lifeguards to open, and so we could either open Resch and Colburn, or we can open Joanne's. We cannot open Joanne's and Colburn with the number of staff that we have. And so it was either open one pool or open 2 pools. And so that was the decision we had to make on our end.
Alder Gerlach and then Alder Dorf.
So am I nuts? I know I was at Joanne's pool today and it was open. Is it just open for lessons and then you close it?
Yeah, so we did have a session of swim lessons start at Joanne's on Monday. So that goes through next week, Thursday. So yes, we have just been open for swim lessons because we only need a lifeguard plus our swim instructor staff. So we don't have to put a lifeguard up in every stand for lifeguard or for swim lessons, excuse me.
Okay, thank you.
And what our game plan is currently is that, once we're done with lessons out there, at that point, if we don't have a surge of lifeguards that will allow us to open that facility, we may likely just drain the pool for the season.
Alder Dorf.
So have we made this very, very public as to that is why we did not open the east side? Because I've seen the Facebook posts, and I think that it's going to be very important to our community that they understand why. Mm-hmm. And so has there been any messaging out there? That,
Not yet, because we haven't made that final decision yet. But once we do, we will market the reason as to why.
It's a good reason.
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm unhappy about it because I think the east side needs a pool, but it's a really good reason. So people should be able to, well, if they want to understand that, they should be able to. But we got to get the reasoning out there.
And we're still going day by day with this. So we're still, right up through today, we've been hoping for more lifeguards and being able to open that facility. I think initially at the last Parks Committee, we did say that we were going to open Resch first and then Colburn if we didn't have enough to open Joanne. So we did mention it at the last meeting. It really isn't until, literally the last couple of days when we're looking at how many lifeguards are applying, how far we are into the season, what our staffing levels are. Even with the 2 pools we have open, they're not open to their full capacity. So we still don't have the inflatables in at Colburn because we don't have the number of lifeguards we need. We're able to do a bare bones opening for both of those. So, but you do make a good point that, now that we're at the point where we are, the summer is so far in, and we're kind of nearing the end of, being able to hire and train lifeguards, we do have to start getting that word out there of the reasons why our decisions were made.
Thank you.
And we did prior, or just as we opened Resch for what was supposed to be June 12th, our opening weekend for the pools, we did put out on all of our social media sites that due to staffing shortages, the pools are going to operate with a different schedule, and that we would keep everybody posted. So that messaging has been out there, and obviously we've done media and press along with that. So I think, but once we make that final decision as to what we're going to do, and if we are going to drain Joanne's and just move on with Resch and Colburn, we will most certainly get that message out.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, thank you. Good job. Keep it up.
Doing the best I can. Thanks.
Motion to receive and place on file.
Second?
Motion to receive and place on file by Alder Burnett, seconded by Alder Gerlach. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Received it and placed it on file.
Okay, we are ready for the next item.
Director's report. Go ahead.
So I just have a few items that I just want to touch bases on that we really didn't go into a lot of detail in the director's report that's attached to the agenda. So the first is we were able to touch bases with Alder Burnett today to talk about Henisra and the fat tire biking. We will be holding another public meeting sometime late summer to discuss that topic and, proceed with, figure out how we're going to proceed for next year. So you'll be hearing about that meeting in the next few weeks. Secondly, the city finally received our occupancy permit for the new conference hall banquet center at the Wildlife Sanctuary. So although, that 4K facility was open for quite a while, we did not open the banquet hall, partially because of COVID. But the other part is we still had some construction issues we were contending with. And so the nice thing is we finally have an occupancy permit in the next few days. We are going to formally open it up for rentals. So hopefully we'll get a lot of rentals and it'll be a very successful amenity for the Wildlife Sanctuary. And finally, I just want to give you a reminder that we do have Kids Day next week, Friday. So we are this week, Friday, so it's actually in 2 days. So the week's going by pretty fast for me, sorry. But anyway, just give you a little heads up here. This isn't going to be the traditional Kids Day that we normally have. We're still fighting through the COVID pandemic, but we are offering it to the public this year. Last year, we did not offer it to the public. So we are going to have kind of 2 kickoff events, one at Joanne's and one at Fisk. And those will be at 11 o'clock on Friday. And we'll have a press conference at Fisk Park at 11 o'clock. So you're all welcome to attend. We are going to be doing some events for the parks, but probably not as many as we typically have done. And there still are a number of community members who are teaming up with the city to offer free attractions to kids for that day. So we do have that all listed on our city website. There's a brochure you can look at which has all of the events and times and participating companies. So you have any questions, feel free to reach out to either me or one of our staff. And that's really all I have to add for the director's report.
Alder Gerlach?
I have questions, sir.
Yes.
There's something under forestry in your report about the reorganization of the department or something.
Yes.
Could you just explain what that is?
Sure. So we had our city forester retire a few months ago, maybe 2 months ago. The assistant forester was promoted into that position. And then instead of filling the assistant forester position, what we did through the personnel committee is we turned that one position into 2 forestry supervisor positions. So what we have right now in the new format is a city forester and 2 supervisors. So one supervisor focuses his attention on the west side of Green Bay, the other one focuses his attention on the east side of Green Bay, and their job is primarily to do all of the field work supervision. So they get the crews going in the summer, or every day, not just in the summer. They set the scope of work for our crews. They'll go out and assess the trees. They'll go out and knock on people's doors and answer questions for the public. So in essence, we took one position and created 2.
Okay, thank you. And now I have one more question. It's about the trout at the wildlife sanctuary. I
Yes.
do not understand this. It says that the trout stocking occurred and the children are enjoying catching them. And then it says, unfortunately, adults are also. So we're having to police and enforce. Why? Adults aren't allowed to catch the trout?
The adults are not allowed to fish there. So
Oh,
it's a
really?
children fishing location only. And
Okay.
unfortunately, a lot of the public doesn't know that. So a lot of times, year after year, we do an education to the public. So, if we see somebody who clearly doesn't have a child with them, we'll approach them and friendly remind them of the rules of the facility. And usually everybody is very understanding of that, but it is not meant for adults, it's meant for youth.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Okay, then I do have one question about the gypsy moth. If I've got gypsy moth, did they go around, to the foresters? Was it just to complaints, or did they do a check around the city where there are a lot of oaks, like my neighborhood? Mm-hmm. Or so if I have an issue, should I be in touch with them, or?
Yeah, I know they did some inspections. I don't think they went completely around the city. I think it was more complaint basis. But yeah, if I were you, I would recommend that you contact Brian, our city forester. And if you need his contact information, just give me a call and I'll pass that on to you, and he'll be able to answer any questions for you.
Okay, thank you. Anything else from anyone? Alder Gerlach?
I have to make an announcement before we adjourn.
Oh,
I
well,
think
we're not adjourning yet.
you'll all want to hear this.
Okay.
My youngest grandchild was in town with me for about 8 or 9 days. I spent a tremendous amount of time at Bay Beach. It was as beautiful and wonderful and happy as it's ever been, and a very diverse crowd. It's so good to see all kinds of people there. But I have to tell Mr. Anderson that I rode the Zip and Pippin twice. I want that in minutes.
You get 2 thumbs up for that.
Right. Okay, I'm done.
Motion to receive and place on file director's report.
A second.
Motion by Alder Burnett, seconded by Alder Gerlach. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously.
That's it, right? Move to adjourn.
Well,
We're ready.
We're ready? Okay, yeah, our next meeting is July 28th, same bat time, same bat channel. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Burnett,
Second.
seconded by Alder Gerlach. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? No. We are adjourned. Thanks, staff, everybody. Great job.
Thank you.
And Director Dishai, do you know, has the language been changed? Do we have to wait till 6 o'clock or can we start a little earlier? Do you know?
You
It's
should
only
be able to
15
start in
minutes.
10 minutes.
Pardon?
I would recommend starting in 10 minutes.
Okay. 10 minutes. That sound good for everyone?
5:53.
Kiddo. See everybody then. Thanks, everyone. Great job.
Thanks.
you.
Bye. Oh. Did you change the language per what they? Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I don't know, they're always changing things. Yeah. We're done.
Wrist vibrate, but didn't realize it was you. I was actually packing stuff up, and I figured, well, I'll check the test one.
No, she just made a motion.